Democrats gone wild. Good morning, Boston. Okay, my friends, buckle your seatbelt because, do I've got a show for you today. Liberals now are running amok. There's no question about it. And in the bluest of blue states, you want to see what the future of liberalism holds? You want to see where the Democratic Party is taking this country and wants to take this country? All you've got to do now is look at the states where the Democrats have utter, complete political domination. From California, to our own People's Republic of Massachusetts. Right here in Massachusetts, the Democrats now are proposing bill after bill after bill that I'm telling you, you want to talk about destroying the United States? These bills, these proposed laws will do it. Let's start with California. So, as you know, there is a reparations task force. We've been talking about it quite a few shows in which, whether it's the city of San Francisco or now the actual state of California, they want to offer reparations for allegedly those whose ancestors were enslaved. Well, guess what? Not only now are they going to be pushing $1, $2, $3, even $5 million reparations, but now they say there has to be reparations in other ways as well. According now to a bill that has passed the California State Assembly. In fact, it passed 2 months ago and is now going through the committee process in the state Senate. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. By the way, Newsom says he will sign it. AB 852. AB 852. Now they want to pass a bill that California Governor Newsom says he will sign that will give lighter sentences, criminal sentences, to black and Latinos simply because of the color of their skin. Let me repeat that. They're now taking critical race theory and they are extending it and applying it to the entire criminal justice system. This is Black Lives Matter now applied not just to defunding the police, not just to being electing DAs that are soft on crime. No. This is now, we're talking same crime. I don't know, let's say you rob a 7-Eleven. Just indulge me. Black, Latino defendant, lighter sentence. A white or an Asian defendant, tougher sentence. Why? Because according to this bill, and according now to what the Democrats in California are arguing, they need to give judges the discretion in order to, quote unquote, rectify racial bias, quote unquote. That's the key phrase in the bill. To rectify racial bias in the criminal justice system as a whole. So, according to this bill, liberal Democrat judges can consider race in sentencing. So, you commit a crime, same crime. Both of them, let's say, two defendants rape a woman. Race, however, can be considered a factor because of reparations, because of wanting to undo the supposed historic racism and legacy of slavery that, say, a black defendant or a Latino, they're throwing Latinos in with blacks, even though Latinos were never enslaved, but let that go. I mean, at this point, when you're making stuff up, go all the way. If you're going to pander, go all the way. And so there's a rape. The black defendant will get 10 years if the judge believes he wants to rectify historic racism and undo white supremacy and the effects of slavery, and it's part of the reparations. And say an Asian or a white defendant will get 20 years. All in the name, I swear to you, of quote-unquote racial justice. Now, a couple of points, and then I want to open it up to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. A, you want to destroy racial harmony in this country? This is how you do it. This is now what the Democrats are revealing. What they're now, what they're rolling out is almost a how-to masterclass on how to destroy race relations in the United States. Number one, it's blatantly unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional regarding California's state constitution. Never mind our own federal constitution. California's state constitution bans affirmative action, bans the use of race, for example, in admissions or in university applications. Now you think this is going to pass constitutional muster? We'll see. We'll see. But the fact of the matter is, now forget equal treatment under the law. Forget a colorblind society. What they're doing now is the exact opposite. What they are now saying is, as part of their reparations package, and this law looks like, this bill looks like it has the votes. It's got the votes in the committees. It's got the votes in the state Senate. It already passed the state assembly, and it's got the full support of the governor, the moonbat governor, Gavin Newsom. So what they're trying to do now is entrench and codify special rights, special privileges based on race to certain designated victim groups. And they're deliberately now in the law discriminating against certain other racial or ethnic groups. And we're talking criminals. So they want to give black and Latino criminals special rights and special privileges. Now, there's got to be a certain point. Really, I'm serious. There's got to be a certain point where these crazy left-wing Democrat politicians, and the problem is they dominate the California Democrat Party like they dominate the Massachusetts Democrat Party. There's got to be a point where there's a penalty for this. They just can't keep doing this over and over and over and over again. There has to be a certain point when you start proposing legislation that is this racially destructive, that is going to sow this kind of social bitterness and this kind of obvious social inequality and racial inequality, and is so blatantly illegal and unconstitutional. There's got to be a price to be paid. There really does. Who comes up with stuff? As I was telling Grace last night over dinner, who the hell comes up with stuff like this? This is racial Marxism. That's what this is. It is racial Marxism. And so now we are going to have in California, if they pass this bill, and it's looking like it's going to pass, so we are literally going to have two standards of criminal justice. A lighter, softer, weaker one, simply based on the color of your skin, black and Latino, as part of reparations for slavery, even though Latinos, for example, were never enslaved. Every black in California was never enslaved. California never had slavery. You see how crazy all this is getting? But we're going to have tougher, harsher sentences because the perpetrators happen to be white or Asian. So if you commit a murder, I'm not kidding, and you're white or Asian, yeah, you may get 25, 30 years in prison. If you're black or Latino, give them 8. Give them 8. Come on, give them 8. To rectify the racial bias of 200 years ago, give them 8. Now, I'm telling you, the people of California, by the way, including many blacks and many Latinos, I guarantee it, are going to revolt against this. Because they understand full well that once you start playing this kind of racial games, once you start injecting race into everything, it is going to create a powder keg. You're going to have tremendous resentment among whites, among Asians. You're going to see Latinos and blacks. They're going to resent, and they will resent, being treated, saying, why do we need special privileges? So what, are you saying we have a greater proclivity to commit crimes? Is that what you're saying? And so because of this, we have to be treated lighter? We have to be given special treatment? Because somehow we have a somewhat innate quality within us? That's what you're arguing? To commit more crimes than others? This, I'm telling you, if we go down this road, it will no longer be equality under the law. It will be inequality under the law. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Democrats gone wild. California now, and by the way, this is going to be mimicked in other deep blue states around the entire country. On this issue, California is now leading. So, as part of their reparations package, they have passed a bill in the state assembly. It's now making its way through the state senate. They have the votes. Newsom says he will sign. This bill, not say if passed, when passed, I guess is the more proper way of saying it. When this bill is passed, they now say that there will be lighter it'll be at the discretion of the judge, to be more accurate, to impose a lighter sentence for the exact same crime if the criminal defendant, now remember, this is someone who's been convicted, found guilty. We're not talking about a hypothetical. We're talking about an actual criminal found guilty of, take your pick, carjacking, burglary, assault, rape, murder, the whole gamut. If you're black or Latino, you'll be eligible to be given a lighter sentence simply because of the color of your skin. If you're white or Asian, you'll be given a tougher sentence. And the argument is, it's to, quote, rectify systemic racism, racial bias in the criminal justice system. Good idea, bad idea, you know how I feel. I want to hear from you. Should we now essentially have two standards of criminal justice? Democrats and liberals now say yes. I say this is poison and destructive, and frankly unconstitutional and illegal. But that's me. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470. 70470. The lines are jammed. Before I get to the phone lines, here's a really, really good text. And I think this is the scary part of the bill. It's implied, and this is going to be its logical conclusion. And I think 781 nails it. Jeff, taking this insanity to its logical conclusion, this means eventually that a crime for a white person is not a crime for a black or Latino person. Yes, to be more accurate, just to slightly alter the text, this means that a crime for a white or Asian person is not a crime for a black or Latino person. Eventually, that's what it's driving to. Can you say segregation? Can you say apartheid? Again, this is racial Marxism. Now, one more, and then I want to go to the phone lines. This is from 508. Jeff, of course, this will not pass constitutional muster. Obama, the architect of this bill, already knows this, but it serves the Democrats' strategy. Yes, it will cause horrific racial strife, but it will also garner lots of Latino and black votes, much as the student debt relief promise did, even though the Supreme Court eventually shot it down. I agree. I think this is a naked, blatant attempt at pandering. And especially to criminals. And say, hey, vote for us. You won't go to jail. Or if you do, you'll get a lighter sentence than the white guy. 617-266-6868. Paul in Weymouth, you're going to start us off. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for letting me be number one. It's an honor. You know what? I don't know, like, where they find these politicians up in California, but statistically speaking, in California, in the black community, the crime rate against black on black is very, very high. So if you want to talk statistically, if a black person goes and commits a crime, statistically speaking, it's going to be against another black person in that community. So the only thing they're doing is keeping criminals in that community assaulting or committing crimes against other members of that community who most likely are going to be black or Latino.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, right out of the gate, you guys are already clicking on all cylinders. Huh? Paul, you guys don't even wait a couple of calls, huh? Right away. No, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. The overwhelming majority of victims of black crime in California, frankly in Chicago, in New York, are blacks. So if you're going to give lighter sentences to blacks or Latino criminals, who do you think it hurts? Innocent law-abiding blacks and innocent law-abiding Latinos. Like you're just hurting the good people in the community. That's all you're doing. And you're right. You're just going to continue to allow these criminals to exist in that community and commit more crime and more crime and more crime, which creates more victims and more victims and more victims. But we're the racists. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. You want to see the future? Here it is. It's coming right now. This is what the Democrats and liberals have in store for us in California, Oregon, Washington State, here in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York. You're going to see some bills that are now being passed or about to be passed. And this is their vision for the country. And we're going to start with California, but believe me, we're going to make our way to Mass and other places, and it's going to blow your mind. So, as part of their reparations task force, now a bill has passed the state assembly, their state house. It will pass the state senate. They're just marking it up in the committees. It will be voted on very soon. Newsom says he will sign it. This bill, which will become law, will have two standards of criminal justice. Judges will be able to use their discretion to impose lighter or softer sentences, sometimes even no prison time, if a person is black or Latino. If the person, the same crime, I mean, what, two murders, one is black, one is white, or one is Latino, one is Asian, then the Asian and the white criminal will get a much stiffer, tougher sentence. And as many of you are pointing out, the logical conclusion is eventually a crime will be prosecuted against whites or Asians. It will not be prosecuted against blacks or Latinos. That's where this is eventually going to lead. And so my question to you, is this the kind of country you want to live in? Will this help or hurt the United States? I believe it is toxic to race relations. Never mind, it takes a sledgehammer to equality under the law and equal treatment under the law. The due process, the equal protection clause, forgive me, in the 14th Amendment, that now goes out the window. But this is now the future as far as the Democrats are concerned. racial Marxism, pitting one group against another. 617-266-6868 is the number. Many of you are pointing out in emails and text messages, this is not only disgusting, but it's pure pandering. And the reason is the Democrats are getting desperate. They're losing the Latino vote. They're now starting to bleed and hemorrhage the black vote, especially black males. So this is the kind of garbage, critical race theory garbage, they have to resort to try to pander and win back the minority vote, the Hispanic and the black vote that they are now losing. 617-266-6868. Caroline on the North Shore. Thanks for holding, Caroline, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning, and God bless you.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. You know, my point was similar to that first caller who was magnificent. And when I heard you talking about this, my first thought was, okay, imagine a black mother and she loses a little baby to, I don't know, some gang banging going on in the neighborhood. And it's found out that the murderer was a black thug, you know? And is that going to console her knowing that, oh, well, the murderer didn't get a stiff sentence taking my baby's life because he's a black person like I am? Oh, isn't that great? Talk about devaluing someone's life. They're devaluing the life of the little baby who was murdered. So I think it's only going to hurt black on black or Spanish on Spanish or Spanish on black relations. I think it's going to destroy their own communities. What are your thoughts on that?
I
Jeff?
agree. I completely agree, Caroline. I think you hit the nail right on the head. And Caroline, look, I mean, not that, please, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I don't wish any ill will on you or your family. I'm just going to use this as an example. God forbid, someone breaks into your home and, I don't know you personally, but kills your husband or kills your child. And then they turn around and say, but Caroline, the killer was white. So we're going to give him a lower sentence. We're going to give him a lighter sentence because he's a white person. Right? So you must be happy about that. My reaction would be, I don't care if they're white, Asian, black, brown. What do I care? It's a murderer. Took my child away, took my spouse away, took my whatever. Assaulted me, burglarized me, or whatever crime they committed. I want you to throw the book at them. I don't care about the color of their skin. What kind of sicko? That's the thing. These are sick people. Seriously, Caroline, what kind of sick person would go up to you and say, well, Caroline, hey, I know your baby's gone, but hey, the perpetrator's your same skin color. So we're going to give him a lower sentence. Wouldn't you turn around and say, what are you, from the Klan? Like, are you serious? Am I wrong?
Well,
hello,
that baby
Caroline?
is the same.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, please. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say real quick, the murderer didn't take into account that my baby's skin color was the same as theirs before they took his life.
That is touche, Caroline. Touche. Thank you very much for that call, Caroline. Really good call. Donald in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Donald, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
Go ahead. Welcome, Donald.
Thank you for taking my call, and I wish the best to you and your wife, Grace, and the Kuhner country. It's already hit Massachusetts because illegals that go through the southern border can get their mass license. That's basically trying to buy the Democratic vote. I basically agree with everything you're saying. I think this is just going to secure Trump's victory in 2024.
That's a really good point, Donald. I have to say, look, I think you're right. I think Trump he's going to pounce all over this, and he should. I think all the Republicans, frankly, should pounce all over this. But Trump in particular, I know him. He's going to pounce all over this. And he's going to say, this is what the Democrats want? You really think is this the kind of country you want to live in now?
When we lean away from that for a second, like, everybody knows we have a Manchurian candidate in the Oval Office. Everybody knows that Obama is the puppeteer. Oh, you understand what I'm saying? But no one wants this sick, twisted China 2.0 way of living. Like, the dollar bill's already going to it's already destroyed. Like you say, liberalism should be the meaning of racism to me. I'm white. I call them libtards. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I call them liberal fascists because that's really what they've become. No, really, that's what they've become. And, I got to say this, Donald, you touched on China 2.0. You look at communist China, all kidding aside, they discriminate against the Uyghurs. They're wiping them out. The Tibetans. In other words, they discriminate against entire ethnic groups. That's what fascists and communists do. That's what they do. And that's exactly what they're trying to replicate here in the United States. This is poison. This is poison. And if we allow, like a cancer, if we allow this to spread, it's going to kill us. Donald, thank you very much for that call. And I think Trump is going to jump and rightly so. He's going to turn around and say, so let me ask all of you, you think it's fair now that a murderer or a rapist or a gangbanger should be given a much softer, weaker sentence simply because of the color of their skin? Because this has something to do with, I don't know with what, but with slavery over 150, 160 years ago? No, they're going to take us to Zimbabwe. They want to take us to, they want to take us to these places in Africa, or they want to take us to China, where groups of people, it's a purely tribal society, where you're identified by your tribe, and everybody's at each other's throats. And I thought Caroline had the best argument of all. If you're so worried, if you're so obsessed and you're so concerned about the color of one's skin, you should have thought of that before you committed the crime against, say, a fellow black or a fellow Latino. So what do I care? My child is dead. My wife is dead, or my wife's been raped, or whatever the sick crime that we're talking about. And you think I care that the person is the same skin color? This is what liberalism has become. It's fascism. It sees everything through the lens of race, and it believes in pitting the races against each other. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, should there be... I can't believe I have to ask this question. I can't believe this. But here we are. Welcome to Biden's America. So, in California... Democrats now, as you know, big majority in the state assembly and in the state senate. They've passed it in the state assembly. It's going to be passed in the state senate. Newsom says, put it on my desk. I will sign. Should there now be two standards of criminal justice based, yes, on race? Should judges now be given the discretion, as this bill would, to impose softer, lighter sentences for the exact same crime on blacks and Latinos, and tougher sentences for the exact same crime on whites and Asians? What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470, 70470. I got to say, the audience today, I mean, you're not wasting any time this morning. You're bringing your A game. This is from 917. Jeff, imagine this becomes reality. Imagine a judge in California has to make such a decision and does not give a lighter sentence to a black or a Latino. Imagine what Black Lives Matter and Antifa will do. Burn, baby, burn. You know, that is an absolutely spectacular point. Think about now the pressure liberal judges will be under. Say if there's a big Mike Brown incident, say involving the police. So you have, let's say, a black criminal or a Latino criminal, really a black criminal, and there was an incident with a police officer, and the BLM people want a much lighter sentence. And the judge says, no, whatever. A police officer was shot, a police officer was killed, police officer was assaulted, whatever it may be. Then they're going to put maximum pressure on the judge. You better give that minority criminal a lighter sentence. If not, we will burn this city to the ground. I mean, it's going to allow for the likes of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and the race baiters and the race hustlers. It is going to give them so much leverage to basically now start extorting judges, blackmailing and extorting them, saying, yeah, you better start handing out lighter sentences, because if you don't, we got our army here and they're ready to riot, burn, and loot. This thing is going to be a disaster. I'm telling you, a disaster. 617-266-6868 is the number. Karen, my fellow paisan in Foxborough. Thanks for holding, Karen, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I think all of this is actually giving the minority community in California a license to commit crimes. Because, you know, you could look at it this way. If the judges aren't going to prosecute, will the DA even bring up the case? Will the police even make arrests? This is encouraging people to commit crimes against their own. I don't understand it. It's not that they're going to be getting a lighter sentence and that white people or people of non-colored people are going to be getting a tougher sentence. It's that people will be getting regular sentences that are coherent to the law, but black people, people of color will not. This is a license to go ahead, destroy your neighborhoods. Why aren't they going after the schools, into California schools, setting up mentor programs for these kids that obviously don't have families at home that care, that go into these schools, set up mentor programs, try and prevent whatever they can for these kids to stay out of trouble. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Because you know what? That takes work. That takes work, dedication, and it's just not happening. They're just thinking that, okay, we're just going to take care of these problems with, the signature of the governor. It's ridiculous. It's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for the law-abiding citizens. I don't understand it.
I'm with you, Karen. I'm with you all the way. And I think you're right. I think it is very dangerous. And I think it's very reckless. And I think it's going to destroy the Black and Latino communities. Because you're right. I go back to an earlier texter. The texter said, watch, the logical conclusion is that for Blacks and Latinos in their communities, there will be no crimes. And for whites and Asians, it will be a crime. You're right. That's essentially what's going to happen. They're just not going to prosecute. They're just going to say, forget it. Just forget it. So if it's wrong for Karen, not that you ever would, but just to make the point, if Karen carjacks a car, well, we're going to give Karen 3 years. But if you're in California, and let's say you're a Black or Latino, and you're vandalizing and carjacking, in South Central LA, well, we're just not going to prosecute. So it's not a crime. If you're the certain skin color or race, we're just not going to prosecute. That's it. And if you're white or Asian, we will. We're going to throw, as you put it, congruent to the law. We're just going to throw the book at you. And so what's going to happen? It's going to be a license to steal, loot, murder, rape, assault, deal drugs. If I'm a gangbanger, I'm like, this is the best thing that could ever happen to us, because they prey and victimize on their own community. It's just, to me, and this is what I mean. This, you have overwhelming majorities in the state legislature, the assembly and the state senate. And this is the kind of stuff you come up with? There are so many things you can do to help minorities, help minority communities, and this is the garbage you come up with? Karen, do you think ultimately this is going to fly? Or do you think, A, people are going to finally wake up? And do you think in particular minorities are going to wake up and realize these Democrats are literally now killing us? They're killing us. As you put it, it's going to be open season.
These crimes are going to be committed against minorities. I think it's going to implode, and I feel very, very bad for the citizens, law-abiding citizens of any color in California.
Karen, very well said, and thank you for your call. Jim in Beverly, thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. I was wondering what happens in the case of mixed ancestry. One white parent, one black parent. When we go there?
That's a really good point. In other words, what if the criminal says biracial? Whatever, half black, half white, or half black, half Asian, or, whatever? That's a great point. So do they get instead of, let's say, the black criminal gets 3 years, the white criminal gets 5 years. But if you're biracial, you get 4 years? Is that how they're going to do it, Jim?
And I would expect a black Hispanic person to get 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Using the same math.
Yeah, exactly. Or 1.5.
Yes, just keep manipulating it. The whole thing is just crazy. I can't even think about it.
Jim, I know, look, obviously whites, Asians are really going to say this is beyond disgusting. It's racist. It's pure racism now. In the black and Latino community, I'm just curious, how do you think it's going to be received there? Because they're clearly pandering. They think this is a vote winner. They're going to win votes with this. You think it's going to work? Or do you think many Latinos and many blacks are going to say, are you people nuts? You want to give criminals even lighter sentences? It's going to make things even worse for us in our own communities. You think blacks and Latinos are going to revolt against this? Or do you think they're going to like it?
Bright, shiny new toy. They're going to like it in the beginning, but then after the elections, they're going to realize it's a mistake.
Yeah, that's my fear, Jim. Jim, and thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it. My fear is, I think initially community leaders, the Sharptons, the Jacksons, the La Razas, they're going to come in there and say, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. And people are going to say, well, let's give it a try. And then you try it, and the consequences are going to be so disastrous that the people, the communities are going to say, my God, it's made life infinitely worse. It's made the gangbangers stronger. It's made the criminals now have even more impunity and the ability to commit even more crimes and to rampage and victimize our communities even more. 617-266-6868 is the number. Eddie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Eddie, Sebago Lake, Maine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Eddie?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. My question is, we'll start off with Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi. They want all this restoration. Why don't somebody ask him, why don't you give up just half your wealth? We'll put it in the kitty and we'll start from there because you really believe in it. Right? And see how far it goes. And another thing, they want us to pay for sins that happened 300 years ago. Why don't they get brought in? I'm pretty sure you checked their roofs. They got slaves that started their wealth off. And another thing, Biden once said, not to give the moron any credit, that why should I pay for what my great-great-granddaddy did? You know what I mean? But he wants us to pay. And one other thing, Jeff, write a story to Elizabeth Warren. She's all for restoration, the same thing. Start us off. Show us you believe it. Give up half your wealth to the plot. What do you think, Jeff?
You're dead on. Eddie, you're dead on. That's the checkmate argument. If all of you white guilt-ridden liberals feel so guilty about slavery and reparations, pony up. Put your own money in the kitty. Put your own money in the till. No, you want us to suffer as you live in your gated communities. So they're hypocrites, phonies, and frauds. And it's so obvious. Oh, Gavin Newsom's worth a lot of money. Give some away for reparations. Don't stand there and reward criminals. Thank you very much for that call, Eddie. I really appreciate it. No, here's what I don't get. No, really, honestly, I don't get this. What does any of this have to do with slavery? I know they say racial bias, systemic racism. This has been going on for hundreds of years, and we have to rectify it, and on and on and on. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, what is it? First of all, California never had slavery. So right off the bat, I don't see what you're talking about. Number two, Latinos were never enslaved. So why are they being thrown in the mix? And then number three, what black person in America today has been enslaved? Okay, what black person in America's father was enslaved? Okay, what black person in America today's grandfather or great-grandfather was enslaved? Like, this is ridiculous. And you want reparations by allowing criminals to get lighter sentences? In some cases, no sentences? Like, this is your idea. So this is the check I get. Not that I agree with, my position, but at least the check I get. It's $5 million. I get it. You pocket it, you put it in the bank. Okay, fine, whatever. You spend it, you buy a mansion, whatever it is. But this, so you want to give gangbangers, thieves, murderers, and rapists lighter sentences. In some cases, no sentences. As a form of reparations? Like, hello? Like, hello? 617-266-6868. Anthony in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Well, thank you as always for having me, Jeff. But, wow, just every call is given evidence they think is going to happen if this passed. And I'm sitting there screaming in my head, oh, my God, people, this is already going on. These people have 30, 40 sentences before they go to jail. Where have you been? Like, these people have committed crime upon crime upon crime, and they get slaps on the wrists. So this is already going on. This is just going to be written down on paper so the judge gets covered now, too. But I'm sorry, Jeff. The real story is with Chicago and California giving up this money. Because, honestly, what happened in the late 2000s when all the pension plans in New York dissolved and New York went almost to bankruptcy? The federal government had to bail them out. So you and me, brother, have just woken up to becoming the new world slaves. And Democrats, your black Democrats that are trying to get reparations are forcing us into slavery. Because, Jeff, I'm sure you're like me. You might be on the radio 5 days a week, but this show prep, you have your articles that you write. You work 6, maybe even 7 days a week. So any penny that is taken from you and given to another person is money. That's cash. That cash is no different than the cotton that was grown earlier that you were being forced to pick so that the person could sell it for money. So when they take money from your taxes to give to these people, those people are making you their slave because I don't want to give you that money. You're taking my labor and you're making me a slave for you. And who started the black slavery trade in America? Blacks. And now they're trying to force you back into slavery.
Anthony, I'm just curious. How do you think this is going to play politically? It's big in California. Liberals love it. They want to expand this, believe it or not, into other states. And you're right. I mean, they get so many slaps on the wrist, 20, 30, 40 crimes. Nothing ever happens to them. Now it's in law. It's codified in law. In law, they're saying if you're a certain skin color or race, you're going to get a lighter sentence, period. Do you think this is going to help Trump? Will this guarantee Trump's victory in 2024?
Supreme Court is not going to, this has nothing to do with Trump. They're still going to do it. The DAs and the prosecutors that Soros put into play aren't prosecuting these people already. So what difference does a law make? If they're already doing it, if it's already, like the border, it's not illegal right now to be illegal. So what difference does it make if we have a law on the book that says that you can't be here? They're letting them in anyways. They're doing it anyways. This is what the Democrats do. They know that it's wrong. They know that it's illegal. They don't care. They just do it because they know that nobody's stopping them. And we can't stop them because they'll put you in jail and they'll take away everything from you. Or they're just going to make you a slave. So they don't care. They're already making you a slave by giving them the money. We already do reparations. Every single month we give the poor people in this country the right to live by giving them free food. And then they give them more free food at the pantries. I work in Lawrence, Jeff. Every single food pantry, there's 10 of them now. They're getting that money from the government. We're paying for that food, whether you like it or not. And we're just giving it away. And then you know what the majority of them do? If it's dry goods, they ship it back to their home country on cargo ships. So we're paying for the world's food on top of it. And guess what, Jeff? I don't want to do that. So by you taking my money from my paycheck and directing it to that project to give away that food, you're making me a slave. I'm okay with paying for the military. I'm okay with paying for the government. I'm okay with paying for the fire, the police, all the things that my taxes are supposed to pay for. I'm okay with. But the fraud, the abuse, the disgusting giveaway, you made me a slave. And I didn't sign up to be a slave. Nobody captured me, but I can't go anywhere. I'm a slave. You're a slave. We're all slaves, and we just don't want to admit it.
Anthony, you're on fire today, my friend. Anthony, thank you very, very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Hank, speaking of California, Hank in the Golden State in California. Thanks for holding, Hank, and welcome.
Hey, good morning. The state's not so golden anymore, but I hear you. But hey, you were talking about basically the pressure being put on judges and whatnot, and most of these judges down here are they're activists anyway. So I've got 29 years in law enforcement down here in Southern California, and aside from these activist judges, most of these cases don't even get filed because we have the George Soros-backed George Gascon down here, who he no longer enhances or applies any of these enhancements to any criminal cases, and a lot of these get rejected in way of diversion or whatnot. So, for instance, they had a gang member that was in a jailhouse recording after Gascon dropped his gang enhancement for committing a murder. He dropped the enhancement for possessing a firearm or using a firearm during the commission of that murder. And basically the guy got nothing, got slapped on the wrist, and he's in this jailhouse recording saying that he's going to get Gascon's name tattooed on his face because basically he just completely got away with this crime. And
incredible.
There's
incredible.
There was
Hank,
a bill.
I want to ask you this. This bill now that passed the state assembly, it's going to pass the state senate very soon. Newsom says he's going to sign, where they're going to codify it. They're going to legalize it, whereby if you're black or Latino, the judge will have the discretion for the exact same crime, as you mentioned, murder with a weapon, murder with a firearm, rape, drug dealing, whatever it is. If you're black or Latino, you will get a lighter sentence than if you're white or Asian. Is that going to fly with most people in California, Hank?
Bending over and taking it for a long time because they've already been doing this type of stuff for a while. So like I say, the Assembly Bill 1509 they introduced in California, which basically, so you have these certain enhancements, and say you commit a serious crime and you use a firearm during the commission of that crime. Well, using that firearm in the commission of that crime will add an enhancement to your sentence of, say, 10 years or so. Well, they've already dropped that here a while back because they say it impacts too many people of color. So this has been going on for quite a long time. They tried to get that passed, but even if it doesn't pass, let's say, they're still going to enact it in certain cities like Los Angeles and whatnot, because, for instance, we get emails every day, or not necessarily every day, but, like every month of new changes that are made to policies. Now we have like alternatives to incarceration, and then we have now the zero bail and all these other things. So even if it doesn't happen, there's so much pressure put on these departments that they're just going to wind up quietly doing it anyway.
In reality, it's becoming practice. Great call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lines are blazing. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Dan.
Jeff, when you go into a barber shop, or you go into a cafe, or you sit down someplace, you don't hear racism coming from average people. You don't hear that kind of talk. You don't talk about it. Where racism now, you can see it very, very, very vividly. Where it's born is born in our elites. It's born with the politicians. It's born with the media, and it's born in academia. And the situation is that, I'm not a racist. You're not a racist. Most of the people listening here aren't racist, but we're being called racist all the time, drilling it into us very, very deeply. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you have standards like this, and you have blacks and Puerto Ricans that are getting lighter sentences, how do you discern that if you have like a white mother and a black father, and some of the kids take after the mother and they're white, and some of them take after the father and they're black? How the hell are you going to discern who's white and who's black in interracial and intermarriage? And quite honestly, we are the melting pot of the world. How the hell do you discern all of this other than, really having a master plan of having everybody turn on each other, which is exactly what's going to happen here? You're going to break down the family core because everybody's going to wonder, well, why am I being blamed and you're not being blamed? And basically, it's going to tear down the family core. It's going to destroy the structure that we currently have in place. And basically, how can I say, push racism right down our throats to the point of where it's confusing everybody and causing a great, huge division within this country.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, look, it's going to tear us apart. And I think that's the goal. I keep going back to that over and over and over again. It's divide and conquer. It worked for the Romans. It worked for the British Empire. That's how they were able to rule India for so long and much of their empire. And that's what our ruling class, and that's what the Democrats in particular, that's their strategy. Divide and conquer. And the really sick thing, the really perverted thing in all of this, you're completely right, Dan, is for them to maintain this regime, they have to claim that you're a racist, I'm a racist, the overwhelming majority of Americans are racists, that without them, the KKK would be ruling the streets. That's the figment, that's the fantasy, the lie that they keep pushing again and again and again and again. And you see it in television, you see it in popular culture, you see it in Hollywood, you see it in the media, you see it from the Democrats, you see it from politicians, especially white Americans. And now what Asians have done, I don't know. But, Harvard is was deliberately discriminating against Asians. They just were. in admissions. Many elite universities, same thing. So you're now starting to see real hatred towards Asians. You're also seeing it now towards Indian Americans. I don't mean like Native American Indians. I mean Americans of Indian descent from India, because they're defying the entire narrative. They have most of them have brown skin. Some of them very brown skin. Not that I care, but just giving you a description. And they are literally per capita the wealthiest Americans in the United States. The ethnic racial group that is the most successful in the United States, it's not even close. They double the per capita income of white Americans. Double. Literally double. Are Indian Americans. Now they're turning on Indian Americans too. Because if we live in a white supremacist country, well, how come Asians are doing so well? How come Indian Americans are doing so well? How come Lebanese, Syrian Americans, some of them, Lebanese Americans, I believe, top 3 in income in the United States. Syrian Americans, I believe, number 4. Nigerian Americans, top 10. Top 10. So how is it that these groups that have, darker skin, brown skin, black skin, they're Asian, whatever. Well, if we're such a white supremacist country, how come they're doing so freaking good? Well, it blows up the entire narrative. So increasingly now, they're starting to openly discriminate, not just against whites, but against certain minority groups that defy the narrative. And they got a problem. And I think, Dan, when everything is said and done, you are my honest, hardcore opinion, like I'm in the confessional. Let me be perfectly honest with you. They see the future, the Democrats, and they see Latinos and Hispanics abandoning their party in droves. They see them now increasingly joining conservatives and Republicans. And now you're really starting to see black males. In all my life, I've never seen so many black men openly just come out and say, we've been taken for a ride, man. They've been using us for 50, 60, 70 years, taking our vote for granted. And what have we got for it? Nothing. Nothing. And now they're fearing their grip on power is coming to an end. And that's why they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on playing the race card. Because think about it. Without the race card, the Democrats have nothing. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, California now, it's going to become law. It's pretty much inevitable. Liberalism run wild. Now they will have the discretion, or they will grant the discretion to judges to give lighter, much lighter in some cases, sentences for those who are black or Latino, convicted of a crime. These are criminals, hardcore criminals. Yet if they're convicted of a crime, commit a crime, they will be given much lighter sentences than either white or Asian criminals. Why? It's part of their reparations task force package. They say it is to rectify past injustices, racial bias, according to them, in the criminal justice system. And so, to balance everything out, they need now, they say, to apply lighter, softer sentences to those criminals who are black or Latino. Good idea? Bad idea? Let's go to Dave in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call.
My pleasure, Dave.
Jeff, what's next? The white's going to have to sit in the back of the bus? I mean, this is insane, Jeff.
It's getting there. Dave, it's honestly, we're close. Not there, but we're getting there, Dave.
Right. Well, let's nip the reparations in the bud, Jeff. If you accept, your millions of dollars package for reparations, it should come with a one-way ticket back to Africa or wherever you're from, because you were given the best gift of all. When you were freed, you became an American citizen. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Well, Dave, it's funny when you phrase it the way you just did now. I mean, think about all of these immigrants that have been coming to this country for hundreds of years, desperate to become American citizens, saying you've won the lottery of life. Look at, not that I'm for illegal immigration, you know my position, but look at all these migrants, these illegal aliens, by the millions and millions and millions trying to pour in from Latin America, from Asia, from Africa, from the Middle East. If we're such an evil white supremacist country, they didn't get the memo. It's obvious they didn't get the memo. So you're completely right. You've been given the greatest gift in the history of the world. You're now an American citizen. And Dave, I want to add this, and I'd like to get your take on this. What about, they keep saying, well, ancestors who are enslaved. Okay. But what about the ancestors who are white, who fought in the Civil War to free the slaves? What about all those who died? So say it doesn't apply in my case, but just hypothetically, what if I had an ancestor who fought and died for the Union? So do I got to pay reparations, or do I get a tax exemption? Do I get the tougher sentence, or can I get a lighter sentence? Because my ancestor 4, 5, 6 generations ago fought and died to free the slaves. Like, once you start going down this road of trying to right historical injustices, it's a Pandora's box. Because if you know anything about history, it's full of injustices. That's the history of the world. Dave, am I wrong?
You're 100% correct, Jeff. The Democrat Party does not care about making reparations, Jeff. All they want to do is have, they want to cause the friction and the wave, because the elections, in another year, and they want to have BLM be ready to make another diversion. They can't count on another George Floyd incident because, you just can't count on something like that. And as far as, a little off topic, but the illegals, they don't care about them either, Jeff. They don't care about the illegals, really. Look, just on your regular news, even Channel 5, they had illegals have been living in hospitals, and there's no room for anybody to go into the hospital, so they're being kicked out, and they're being kicked into airports. I mean, who thinks that that's a quality of life, living in an airport? All they're after is votes. They could care less about the human being.
It's all about the power. You nailed it. And I want to thank you very much for your call, Dave. Matt on the Cape. Thanks for holding, Matt, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for taking the call, as always.
My pleasure, Matt.
Hey, Jeff, you want to talk about another two-tier system of justice? I mean, this could be the ultimate social justice or reparations with the radical DAs and the radical judges that are installed and put into these positions. You take this to possibly its natural conclusion. Let me get this straight now. If you're in the black community and you commit black on black crime, maybe the DA, the judge, they throw the book at the guy. But if it's black on white crime, maybe they say, we're going to go a little lighter on this. Instead of being a 10-year sentence, we give them a two-year sentence. So, I mean, I can see that happen. They will take the case, and if it's black on black, maybe, again, he'll get a harsh sentence not to inflame and rile up the communities of color. But if they look at it and say, well, this was perpetrated black on white crime or Asian, hey, we got to take into account his race and social justice and 250 years of slavery and all that.
Well, Matt, look, I think you're opening the door to where many people don't want to go, but let's go, because I think let's put our cards on the table. Let's be explicit. Here's what I think the liberals and the Democrats really want. This is Black Lives Matter and Antifa now completely running our criminal justice system. And when Antifa and Black Lives Matter were rioting, rampaging, burning, looting, killing, shooting, maiming, what were they saying? They were saying in city after city, no, we deserve this. We're entitled to this. This is for slavery. This is for systemic racism. So what they're really trying to create, this is the world they really want to create. They want to see gangs, minority gangs, rampage, loot, and pillage white and Asian communities. That's what they really want. And then there be no consequences. And that's your reparations. Really, ultimately, that's because it's all tied to the reparations task force. So you know what we're going to do now? We're going to go into the suburbs. We're going to go into people's neighborhoods, into their towns, and you can break in, you can shoot, you can murder, you can maim, you can loot, you can steal, you can take, and nothing will happen to you until we think the scales, the historical scales, have been evened out. And if you look at Africa, you look at Uganda, you look at Zimbabwe, you look at South Africa today, that's exactly what's happening. White farmers, their land stolen. Many of them shot, murdered, assaulted, homes confiscated, cars stolen. In other words, we're going to loot you. And we're going to keep looting, and there's nothing you can do until we think we've settled the score. That's what this is. Let's be honest, Matt. That's what they're really driving at. Because even cutting them a $5 million check, that doesn't seem to satiate their bloodlust. So I think that's the dystopia, the future that they really want to impose. This is really what Black Lives Matter is all about. Matt,
Jeff,
what do you say? Am I wrong?
No, that's what I was getting to, Jeff, that they will be able to come into the suburbs with impunity and have a black on white or brown on white crime. And this is the form of social justice and reparations.
Oh, you're dead on. Look, I want to, honestly, Matt, thank you for having the courage to say the quiet part out loud, because that's what everybody is thinking, and in our gut, we all know it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and as always, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, 18 years ago when Obama was elected president, the first thing he did was tell Eric Holder to instruct his Department of Justice to stop prosecuting black on white crime. And we've been going downhill ever since. And when he was elected president, that should have put racism to an end once and for all, because this is the only country in the history of civilization that ever elected a black man president and the leader of any major country ever in the history of the world. Now, as far as this reparations crap goes, all right, to begin with, all right, it was Africans that sold blacks into slavery. And in a lot of cases, it was their old family. So they weren't slaves once they came to a country. They were already slaves when they were coming to this country. And because of the fact that they were only slaves in America, because America only started in 1776, and slavery was entered officially in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation, we had the shortest history for slavery. And while there was slavery in the South, 3,700 blacks owned 12,000 slaves. That's never publicized. The education of the black people, and the truth be told to them, might serve them better. And 1 year of crime and deaths in Chicago is more than what the history of the 40-year history of what the Ku Klux Klan did. And all the poverty for black people in the South compared to the poverty that existed in Appalachia, which has never ended. This country has always been poor. We've had depressions, but you know what? People didn't have welfare back then. They fought their way and they worked their way out of it. And all that this country was about was an opportunity. And this the business with being soft on crime for black on white, because it has been going on for God knows how long. And anybody who commits the kind of crimes that black people have committed against white people, when I think of that poor white girl that was working in a furniture store, viciously stabbed, and I still don't know whatever happened to that person who committed that crime. It's day after day after day when you see where the major crime is committed. And in the black community, all those decent, wonderful black people live in fear of having their children murdered, and nothing's done about it. If I had been president, okay, I would have declared gangs and all these things going on a national security and sent the military in there to wipe them out, city after city. You know, they say that this country was built on the backs of black people. Well, in my lifetime, now I wasn't around in the beginning, but I've been around for a while, and what I've seen is city after city destroyed by riots and black people. And it's not all the black people. It's the criminal black people, just like we have some criminal whites. And the fact that that's been done, and nothing gets done about it, and those cities don't get rebuilt. Okay? And these people have to live in that filth and lawless areas while their own people abandon them and take advantage of them. They have worse representation than white people in Congress. And I think this country is all over, Jeff. And if you allow me, please, one more thing I wanted to say that I couldn't say the other day that's kind of important. I mentioned to you a while ago that they filmed Chinese military type people who were coming across the border. That's right. Illegally, and God knows why they would be doing that. But Gordon Chang, the biggest and smartest expert on China, said that this has been going on for quite a while, that they're sending in through the border military type Chinese to be available and ready for when the time comes to take control. China's been preparing for war, and I've given you warnings before, and the people who listen to the station. We're never ready for war, but we've never been less ready than we are today. And they've been preparing for it. They've been, it scares me to death. And you know something? All these things that are going on with the minorities, it's not going to be a problem once the Chinese take over, because you see how the Asians take care, how the Chinese take care of people who they don't much care about. Rights will be gone for everybody.
Oh, they wipe them out. Oh, you're dead on. Arthur, as always, thank you so much for your call. No, I don't want to get sidetracked. I want to stay on topic, but really, I got to mention this because you're right. Gordon Chang, one of the world's leading China experts, has come out and said it's a deliberate strategy now by the communist regime in Beijing. They are sending young military-aged men, many of them obviously members of the PLA, to infiltrate our southern border. Why? And by the way, they're sending them in packs, like in groups of 5 or 10. Why? So there's going to be sleeper cells all over the country for sabotage, for terrorism, whatever it may be. Should China invade Taiwan, and should we come to Taiwan's aid, they will then be able to start committing acts of terror here in the United States. Now, I mean, it's filmed. I mean, we've got them on camera. And yet, this is what's going on. And the media is silent. The Biden administration knows what's going on. It's silent. And the question is why? And the reason is obvious. Because we have a Manchurian candidate in the White House. or we have someone who is bought and paid for by communist China. It can't be any more clear. He keeps groveling to them. And to bring it full circle, right back to our discussion, who, que bono, who benefits from all this? Communist China. If you're pitting American against American, if you're pitting now entire races at each other's throats, who in the end benefits? Communist China. So, do they love what the Democrats are doing? You better believe it. You better believe it. So, they want to destroy equal justice under the law. They want to see race codified and have different standards of criminal justice based on people's race and ethnicity, because that will really tear apart the United States. And that's exactly what the communist Chinese want. 617-266-6868 is the number. Frank in Waltham. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Thank you for taking my call. This is a tough subject. Nothing's going to change in our lives till we all wake up. We can talk to ourselves or blue in our face. We have to face reality. We have a rogue government. In a rogue government, everybody down the bottom is in chaos. The chaos is everywhere. We have no law and order. We have no family structure. We have no biblical. We have no caring. Your boss is a slave driver. You're a minion. We're all minions. That movie, Sounds of Freedom, I saw July 3rd. That's a wake-up call. Is people awake? No. We have to start focusing on taking out this government now, impeach Biden. Nothing is going to change. There is nobody out there to protect you. How many times have we talked about this? Talk is cheap. Reaction. People. How bad is it going to get? I'm going to tell you. There's nobody's going to protect you when your door comes down. There's nothing going to protect you anymore. I have officials telling me, Frank, how bad? You know how bad it's going to get. Talk is cheap. We all have to unite in every city and town around the United States and find the people that are rogue in government, in politics, in every part of our lives. Not tomorrow, today. We are now all responsible for the deaths of these children around the United States because we're doing nothing but talk. Talk is cheap. Reaction is now, not tomorrow, not next day, right now. We outnumber the enemy. They do not want you to notice the government. They're having a ball out there. They're doing what they want. They're passing legislation. Well, wait a minute. I thought the government is supposed to work for we the people. The average police officer, you ask him, who do you work for? I work for the government. I says, no, you don't. You work for me. Everybody has been brainwashed. How did this government suppress us so bad that we can't get out of this mess? What are we going to do? We're going to sit and talk and talk. Oh, I found about this. I found about that. Why aren't we reacting? Where are the professional people out there that can start databases in every city and town, expose every single person out there? Why are the generals? Where are the priests? Where is everybody? What the hell did they put in our food, Jeff, that to dumb down all the humanity, that all we do is talk? Where is the spite of this state? Massachusetts rose up above all this, and we saved ourselves. Where is the enthusiasm of your life? None of us have freedom. Everybody, you think you've got freedom? You're free when you have your own life and you spend your own money. Your government's got your money. Your government's got your morality. Your government owns you. And who used to talk about this? George Carlin was a human being, a comedian, that told you every day that the Congress people are there. They're just the yes men. What is going to happen? People are going to die because we have no spirituality, no morals. Nobody. Where are these professional lawyers that you have? You see there. We're there for we the people. Where are they when I needed them?
Well, Frank, look, I think part of the reason, and you're touching on a lot of points. I think a lot of this has to do with social media, this apathy out there, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. It's just they've all got an earbud. They're all staring at screens. No one even looks at each other. No one even recognizes each other. No one even says hi to each other. And as long as they got these phones And by the way, drugs, speaking of Massachusetts, everywhere you go, there's a billboard for a cannabis shop. Everywhere you go. So you got people that are stoned. Let's be honest. You got a stoned population, and they're all on their freaking iPads, iPhones, computers, whatever, and they're staring at a screen all day. And that's why they're oblivious to what's going on around them. Now, you said our freedoms are under assault. You are dead on. And I want to thank you for that call, Frank. Because as I started the show with, I go, this is Democrats run wild. So I've been talking about California. Listen now to this. Here's Massachusetts, the California of the East Coast. And it's like a contest now between California and the People's Republic of Massachusetts. Who's going to out-moonbat the other? You want to know what the Democrats have in store for us? Here it is. As I speak to you now, the Democrats in the state legislature, and they're going to have Maura Healey's signature on this bill, I guarantee you, are now on the verge, unless we block this, unless we stand up and say, "Niet, no, absolutely not," are going to pass the most sweeping, restrictive gun control law, in many ways gun ban in the country. It's a ban on almost all guns. This is what the Democrats are now pushing. A ban on practically all guns, registration of every gun and magazine in the entire Commonwealth, whether it's an old gun, new gun, it doesn't matter, and really a de facto ban on carry, on firearms carry. So here is, the bill is 140 pages long. It is being sponsored by this gun control nut, this crazy moonbat, State Representative Michael Day, like the day, like D-A-Y. He's the one that's driving this. It's a 140-page bill. It's HD 4420. So HD 4420. Now, here is exactly what the bill would do. And they have the votes. They have the votes in the State House. They have the votes in the State Senate. And Healey, who now is turning, and she's not even a year in office, already is becoming maybe the worst governor we've ever had. Baker, to me, was the worst. She's already on the verge of eclipsing Baker, and she's barely a year into her term. So this is now the gun control package. Really, it's a gun ban package that the Democrats now are going to ram down our throats. Here's what it does, okay? Again, HD 4420, 4420. Here it is. It would require all receivers and barrels of a gun to be registered and have serial numbers. They're going to register everything, and I mean everything. Now, already, this is dangerous. It's going to further expand our already draconian red flag laws. And it's going to include, now, school administrators, teachers, principals, staffers, medical professionals, nurses, doctors, whoever. Your employer, your boss, can now request an emergency protective order against any gun owner if they believe that that person is at risk of harming themselves or someone else. In other words, they can seize your gun. Literally seize your gun. Now, in reality, let me tell you what that means. If you are, whatever, a nurse doesn't like you or a doctor doesn't like you and they want to be vindictive, they can turn around and say, I think Jeff Kuhner is a threat to himself. I think Jeff Kuhner is a threat to somebody. Your boss is teed off at you and wants revenge for whatever reason. You know, I think Kuhner may lose it. You know, he seemed pretty upset today when I told him he wasn't getting that raise. You know, yeah, when I told him now he's got no he's not going to take any vacation time this year. boy, he seemed pretty angry. Kind of scared me. You know, he was dropping a few F-bombs. I'm kind of afraid he may go postal. So you got to take Kuhner's gun. Yeah, no, you got to invoke an emergency protective order and seize his gun. And then Kuhner has to spend years, or anyone who's a gun owner, you've got to spend years trying to get your gun back. But there's more. They're just beginning. 18 to 21-year-olds. You cannot buy a shotgun or a semi-automatic rifle. They're not going to. The new long gun permit doesn't apply to you. So forget hunting with your dad or your family. So basically from 18 to 21, no guns, especially no semi-automatic rifles, no shotguns. So goodbye hunting. Prohibiting guns in all polling places, all government buildings, all schools, and listen to this, private property without permission from an owner. So, in reality, I mean, basically, you can't take your gun anywhere. You know, unless you go to your friend's house and your friend says, Jeff, I give you my explicit permission that you can bring your gun with you, your concealed carry. So, it effectively bans concealed carry. Now, this is the one of all of them. To me, this is the most outrageous. If you want to get a license to own a gun under this bill, you would be required to complete a live firearm training and complete a written exam. Let me repeat that. So, you want to own a gun. I don't know, personal protection, defend you, defend your family, whatever. Now remember, we're talking about a constitutional right. It's the Second Amendment. It's your right to have a firearm. You want to get a 38 special. You got to take a live firearm training class. You got to complete it. And then you got to complete a written exam? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, in other words, to exercise the First Amendment, you don't need to pass a written exam. But to exercise your Second Amendment, suddenly now I got to pass a written exam? Now, what this does, let's not mince words. This is essentially a ban. It's essentially a gun ban without calling it a gun ban. So, most weapons, it's impossible for law-abiding citizens to own. Every gun, no matter how old, how new, every magazine, everything now needs to be registered, which means the government now has a huge database. They can seize it whenever they want, and you cannot essentially conceal and carry in this state. They've set up so many places you can't go. Basically, it's a de facto ban on firearms carry. This is the most restrictive, draconian gun control package in the history of the United States. And if it passes, and they have the overwhelming votes to do it, Massachusetts would become, without question, the state that most violates the Second Amendment and the state with the strictest, harshest, most draconian gun control laws in the entire country. It is, in fact, so bad that now there is a travel advisory being issued for gun owners here or traveling to the state. Okay, my friends. Oh, boy. Okay, Maura Healey now and the radical Democrats here in Massachusetts. They're following in the footsteps of Gavin Newsom and California. And now it's almost like an arms race. It's a moonbat race. Who can out moonbat the other one? And this is now what the future holds. You want to see what the Democrats really want to do? We talked about California. Listen now to this in Massachusetts. They have now, or about to pass, they're on the verge of passing, the most radical, restrictive gun control package in the history of the United States. According now to numerous Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment groups, they now say that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is putting at serious risk the Second Amendment rights and the freedoms of Americans. As Dudley Brown, the president of the National Association for Gun Rights, put it in a statement, my bad. This is probably the biggest and worst package of gun control regulation I have ever seen. And he goes on to list exactly the horrors in the bill. And he puts it, as he writes in the statement, quote, your gun rights and your freedom are at serious risk in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. If you live there, you might want to pack your bags. And if you're thinking of traveling there, you need to reconsider. And so the National Association for Gun Rights and other groups now are issuing a travel advisory for Massachusetts saying, legal gun owners, you don't want to be caught in Massachusetts, not after this bill passes. It effectively now bans most guns. Now, a couple of very quick points, and then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. The man driving this, he's the bill's author, Democrat state rep Michael Day, a moonbat's moonbat, apparently told Boston 25, Fox affiliate, quote, we're not trying to go after or criminalize proper license holders, people who can responsibly carry a firearm. This is really intending to get at those that are evading our code of laws through the advancement of technology and criminal behavior. Bull crap. Bull, you know what? BS. This is exactly designed to go after responsible gun owners and law-abiding citizens. There's no question. They want to disarm us. They want to make sure that we have no rights, no ability to defend ourselves, our homes, our spouses, our families. There's no question. This package, if it becomes law, and it will be, unless we the people rise up and flood them now with complaints, if we don't start speaking out, if we don't start calling our state rep or our state senator, then I'm telling you, your gun rights are gone. Your Second Amendment rights, in essence, are gone. So, is this going to stop criminals? Notice how they everything is now pro-criminal. The DAs are pro-criminal. The laws are pro-criminal. They even want to lower criminal sentences if you're black or Latino in California. And now they want to strip us of the ability to be able to have a gun and to defend ourselves. And all of a sudden now, you need to pass a written test to be able to exercise your Second Amendment rights? A right is a right is a right. It's not subject to some written test. It's not subject to some written exam. They are harassing gun owners. They're persecuting gun owners. They want to criminalize gun owners. And that's what this bill does. Unless we, the people, stand up and say no. No way. HD 4420 4420 State Rep Michael Day. It's now or never. 617-266-6868 is the number. By the way, the criminals love this bill. They love this bill. Because you see, this bill creates even more gun-free zones. If you're a school shooter, I'm telling you, this is now the state you want to come to. Because what the bill explicitly does is, All schools, gun-free zones. All government buildings, gun-free zones. And pretty much all shopping malls, gun-free zones. Most places in Massachusetts under this bill, gun-free zone. So, if you're some sicko who wants to shoot up a school, come down to Massachusetts, baby, because the teachers won't be carrying, the staffers won't be carrying, the administrators won't be carrying, nobody's going to be carrying. So you just come on in, and once you're in, you can kill as many people until the police arrive. This jeopardizes school safety, public safety, your safety, my safety. And the criminals, they don't obey the gun laws. All you got to do every day now in Boston or in the surrounding areas, it's shooting after shooting. Now they're shooting people in broad daylight. You think this is going to end if this bill passes? Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. And now the Democrats make their move for the Second Amendment. How long will it be before they make their move for the First Amendment? So I want to ask all of you, do you support essentially a ban on concealed carry? That's what this package would do. Do you believe that every single gun should be registered? Every single magazine should be registered? Do you believe there should be a written test? Both a live firearm test and a written test for you to be able to own a firearm? And should people be banned from owning most guns? That's what this package does. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Mike, who do you want me to go to next? CJ in Foxborough. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. It's 2 anniversaries. It's 10 years since the first time I called you. I used to call you from the parking lot of where I worked in the morning before I punched in. I was a letter carrier for 40 years. And anyways, you make a lot of sense every single day of my life.
Oh,
and
God
the other
bless you,
anniversary is 3 years ago. I got my LTC license to carry. How appropriate this waiting to speak with you. And I did it because I had this feeling. I'm 75 years old now. This feeling of what's going on in the country, and that's why I did it. And a friend of mine had me over his gun club and teaching me how to shoot and how to handle firearms. And I've done that since then. But I still don't own my own firearm. But I'm going to now. By the way, Jeff, will this pass the Second Amendment muster? I don't think it will. It'll be. I think
it's going to be challenged in the courts. That's the plan now. That's the ultimate fallback, and we'll take. Hopefully, we'll take it to the Supreme Court. But look, it's going to be in effect for at least a couple of years until the Supreme Court weighs in on this, and it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. My advice to you: get your gun now. Get your gun now, CJ. Because it passed the State House. It's going to pass the State Senate, 4420. Jamie Eldridge is driving this hard. He's a real hardcore moonbat. Maura Healey wants this notch on her belt so bad she can taste it. And what's happening now, this is the scary thing, is you have these travel advisories being issued for gun owners all across the country. And within Massachusetts, they're saying get out. They're saying get out because they're going to ban most guns, and they may even start confiscating guns with these red flag laws. So they're saying get out. And if you have a gun and you're traveling, avoid Massachusetts. Because if you stop anywhere for food, for gas, stay at a hotel or whatever, say you want to go to the Cape or, whatever, spend a couple days here, and you have a gun with you, under this law, you're in big trouble. You are in big, big trouble. So, CJ, we've got to fight this all the way.
Is that okay?
I'm sorry, CJ.
Well,
can you repeat that? I missed what you just said.
I have
Please
two
repeat.
final statements that I like to make
Yes, go
very
ahead.
quickly.
Yes,
well,
please,
I had a teacher, a wonderful world history teacher. His name was Thomas Peters. His real name was Tomas Petrov. He was from Albania. And the first thing you saw on the blackboard when you went into his class was a quotation by George Santayana. Those who refuse to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. I paraphrase. And boy, did he drill the Constitution into us. It used to be a punishment if you didn't do your homework to write the Constitution. And if you've ever seen how long it is, it's very difficult. But anyways, he was a wonderful man, and wouldn't you know, he was from kind of like your neck of the woods in Albania, right?
Well, my parents, I was born in Canada, but yeah, no, Croatia, now where my parents are from, Croatia, yeah, Albania is close by. They know the value of gun rights. Believe me. Because as my grandfather taught me, when the communists seized power in 1945, the very first thing they did, CJ, was take my granddad's gun. He had a rifle. It was over his fireplace. And it was one of the few times in his life he ever cried. He said, because when they took that rifle away, it wasn't just for hunting, it was for self-protection. He said, I knew I couldn't protect my family anymore. And it was a precursor, because several weeks later, he was in a concentration camp. When they come for the guns, they eventually come for you.
You had the other day was this child sex trafficking. And you said, what's wrong with the country? What's going on? I know what's going on. It's the absence of God in everybody's life, the absence of spirituality. That's why this is all going on. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, CJ. And look, I mean, the right to self-defense, that's a God-given right. It's given to us by God. You have the right to defend yourself, your home, your family, your spouse. That is your right. Especially from a criminal, an aggressor, a murderer, an invader. You have that right. And so to me, not only is this bill, to me, unethical, immoral, unconstitutional, but it's anti-freedom. It's ultimately, it's anti-God. You have the natural, look, they believed that these rights were so sacred, they wanted to codify them in the Bill of Rights, our founding fathers. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. And then they said, but those freedoms can only exist if you have the right to defend yourself. That's why they put the Second Amendment right after the First Amendment. The liberals keep treating the Second Amendment like it's a throwaway amendment. It isn't. The reason why it's number 2. I mean, of course, number 1 is the right to be free. But number 2 is if you don't have the power, the ability to defend your freedom is useless. It's worthless. Hence the Second Amendment. So this is not only illegal and unconstitutional. To me, this bill is grossly immoral and unethical. And it's pro-criminal. Because it doesn't matter how many gun control laws you pass. Take Chicago. Take California. Take New York. I don't care. If you want, we can do country after country after country. When you pass gun control laws, especially this severe, this restrictive, the criminals always get their access to guns. They're swimming in them. They're drowning in them. It's you, the law-abiding citizen. You're the one that's disarmed. Michael Day, that Moonbat state rep that's pushing this, should be ashamed of himself. 617-266-6868. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Tuna man, you're the man, brother.
Thank you, Victor.
Let me give you a compliment before I make my point. No one, because of you being a professor, being your background in studying history and just, being a logical person, no one can pierce your arguments when you drop that information on them. And that's why it makes me cringe a little bit when you get mad at these moonbats and tell them F off or whatever because you're lowering yourself to their idiotic standards because they have no standards. You just keep dropping that information on them. And we in the audience, we'd love to hear that. We'd love to hear that information, and it just decimates. It's like those cluster bombs that Biden wants to give to Ukraine. It wipes them out. They don't know what the hell hit them. So keep up the good work there. And let me tell you something. That's what they fear the most about you is when you bring it, brother, you bring it. And there's no argument that they have to counter your information.
Thank you. Thank you, Victor.
I've listened for many, many years and love hearing you. Love having Sandy as a guest host when you are doing other work. So here's my comment. We have a debt of gratitude to the MAGA Trump administration. Now, the Supreme Court made a ruling that racism is not allowed in college admission. So that is phenomenal. Now, all the liberals went crying and moaning when that happened, but it set a contemporary precedent, if you will. So, if that guy in California, Governor, Mr. Smooth there, if he thinks that he's going to get a law that's going to stand that allows him to discriminate on punishment based on whether you're a Caucasian or not,
he must be smoking something. Look, Victor, I hear you. I think eventually that's going to be shot down by the Supreme Court as well. To me, what's frightening is that's what these Democrats are passing, and they think it's good. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, getting a lot of emails, text messages. Liberals say that that's exactly why they put Maura Healey in the corner office, the governor's office, that it's for exactly this kind of bill, that they want to disarm as many citizens as possible, because according to them, I swear to you, gun control means less crime. Even though wherever it's been tried, gun control leads to more crime, more violence, more school shootings. So let me ask you, should we now do you support this restrictive gun control package, the most restrictive, a draconian in the entire state, that would make all schools, all government buildings, all shopping malls gun-free zones? And if you do apply for a license to own a gun, should you be made to pass a written test? I say this is clearly illegal, unconstitutional, and dangerous, but that's me. What do you say? 617-266-6868. Liberals now say you don't have the right to defend yourself or your family. To me, that's fascism, but that's me. Anthony in North Andover. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. This has been an ongoing situation for several years now in the country and specifically in Massachusetts. And I'm asking you have a huge platform. You have dedicated followers because you do the right thing. And I believe God has divined you to have that voice. We all know this is wrong. We all know this is illegal. We all know this is a takeover. It's not just a bad law. It's not to stop crime. It's to stop people from living their lives freely. And we need organization. We need a voice. We need a collective. And people like you who have a platform, I'm saying respectfully, need to implement times and places for us to show up and to have that collective voice. How do we stop this? How can we stop this? Is there a possibility to stop this?
Oh, I think there's no question. I think one of the things the media is deliberately doing is not reporting on this law or this bill. Forgive me, this package. That's why I keep giving out the name HD 44220. Sorry, HD 4420, HD 4420. So you can find it. You can read for yourself what's in it. I mean, it's widely reported. Sorry, those that have covered it have reported what's in the bill. But you look at most media outlets, they don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole because they know if the people knew what was in the bill, they'd revolt. So, the expression knowledge is power. And that's why they're into censorship. That's why they're into suppression. That's why liberals do everything they can to try to keep the truth from coming out because they know knowledge is power. No, there's no question. Most people do not support this. Why would they support this? It's insane. It's literally insane. So you can contact State Rep Michael Day. You can contact Jamie Eldridge. I would just call your state rep and state senator and say, you vote for this, you're finished. I will do everything in my power to defeat you and get real pushback. The problem, Anthony, and this is the frustration if you sense it in my voice, is this is what happens when you have a one-party system. When you don't have a competitive two-party system, there is no check on the Democrats. None. And this is why I'm very upset at the rhinos in particular, and I'll name names, Chris Doty and the people who supported him, because after they lost the primary to Jeff Deal, rather than supporting Jeff Deal when he was the Republican nominee against Healy, because Deal warned us all of this was going to come under Healy. All of this. They instead deliberately sabotaged Jeff Deal. And now we have Healy and complete Democrat control up on Beacon Hill. And so they're drunk with power and they think they can get away with anything. So what they don't understand and what they're going to start to understand as people get awake to what's going on is no, you don't have the right to just start taking people's guns. You don't have the right to start behaving in an authoritarian, unconstitutional manner. No one appointed them God. You don't have the right to take away people's basic ability to defend themselves and their families. So we have to speak out. If we speak out, we win. Because most voters in Massachusetts don't want gun-free zones. They don't want gun-free zones. They don't want gun-free school zones. They don't want gun-free shopping malls zones. They don't want gun-free zones across the entire Commonwealth. They know that this is going to empower criminals. It's just common sense. So, but most people have no idea that this bill is making its way through the state legislature. In fact, most of the local media hasn't even covered it. By the way, I'm going to talk about the sex ed curriculum now that Healy is going to try to ram down our throats. Wait till you find out what they want to teach your child in school. It's sick. It's perverted. In fact, I'm going to read, not today, but probably tomorrow or next week, I'm going to read specifically from the proposal. Because you're not going to believe me. You're going to say, come on, he's exaggerating for effect. I'm going to literally read from the proposal. You wouldn't believe the stuff they're going to be. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids. So we've got to start pushing back. We've got to call our state rep. That's what I'm doing. We've got to call our state senator and say, you vote for this, you're cutting your own throat politically. But, Anthony, I can only do so much. I can't make people email. I can't make them call. That's up to all of you.
Visible presence. And, again, you're right. It is very frustrating. And it is an evil attempt to squelch freedom in this world, in this country. And I think that the public square needs to come back to some extent because people sitting in their homes, they get lazy. You know, you tell them all you want to call and to write and to do what they need to do, and they find other things to do. I think we need to have a public showing of support for what's right.
Maybe it's time for a rally. If enough Kuhner Country listeners say it's time for a rally, well, look, I mean, that'll ring their bell. There's no question it'll ring their bell. So we got to do a campaign, a phone campaign, an email campaign. We've got to let them know we're not happy. And if they still won't listen, maybe it's time for a rally right there on Beacon Hill. And thousands and thousands and thousands come out. Believe me, it'll make some noise. Anthony, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Steve in Braintree. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing wonderfully. It absolutely amazes me that I had to listen to 25 years of the left saying that Roe v. Wade was established law and that anything any state tried to do to violate Roe v. Wade was fascist, was misogynistic, was anti-woman, and was against the law. You remember this, Jeffrey. It only happened a few years ago.
Yes.
I know they memory hold it, but you remember that. And now after the Bruin decision, which could not have been more properly legally reasoned, set out the parameters for what you can and cannot do, gave you a time frame for what you can and cannot do back in the 1800s or late 1700s when the Constitution was adopted, all gave them the criteria for what needs to happen. And every state afterwards decides, F the Supreme Court, we're going to do what we want to do. They did it in New York City. It's insane. And then every time they bring it up, the laws get enjoined and it has to go through the system again. They're just begging the Supreme Court to take up another case and smack them down. The same thing happening in the affirmative action decision. They telegraphed what they were going to do, and Roberts had to say, no, you can use your essays, but it can't be the thing that, replaces the current system. It's insane the way they do this. And the mass law, as, proposed, is insane. You don't need someone's consent to exercise your constitutional rights. That's the difference. Because what people don't understand is you don't have a right to carry on private property. If a mall posted a sign that said no guns, you can't bring your gun in there. It's their private right. It's private property. If a person tells you, don't bring your gun on my property, the problem is they have to tell you that. There's an affirmative prohibition. It needs to be posted. You need to be told, much like a trespassing. Here, it's without the consent of the owner. That's post being on the property. That's insane. There's no way that's going to pass constitutional muster. It's absolutely crazy. And to place any restriction on a constitutional right, be it a poll tax, be it a written test, insurance, is not going to pass constitutional muster. It's already been, this is just absolute insanity. I don't understand why they think they can do it.
Steve, you anticipated my next question. This is the one that has a lot of people really worried. The written test, the live firearm test, and then, of course, the written test. And so what a lot of people are saying is, and I agree with them, well, how about the right to vote then? No, unless you pass a civics test or a constitutional test or a literacy test, you can't vote. Democrats would go absolutely berserk. So, Steve, you think that this is so outrageous, so restrictive, so violates the Second Amendment that there's no way this is going to pass in other words, the constitutional test that the Supreme Court will eventually weigh in and it will shoot it down, correct?
The NRA will do just like it did with the short barrel rifle pistol grip, the AR-15 thing. The NRA or Gold will step in. They'll lose in the First Circuit because Massachusetts has judges here who are crazy. They'll appeal it, and the Supreme Court will step in because they're sick of seeing this. Because they're getting really tired. Same thing that happened in New York. Portions of that law were struck down or enjoined until it goes through the process. Hopefully it will. You never know. I think the justices are getting really aggravated having to keep doing this. I think that the more they flaunt it, the more the justices are going to take these type of cases. So, they keep pushing and pushing. Just because you don't get an injunction at the district court level or at the appellate court level, you can still appeal it because, you can't let a law sit that violates constitutional rights. It's just insanity. We don't have a problem in this state. That's the crazy part. We don't have
that's the other thing. No, you're right.
Crimes.
You're right. No, I mean, in terms of, mass shootings, thank the Lord, school shootings, and we don't have that problem. You're completely right. We already have some of the most restrictive gun control laws in the entire country. Like, what's the problem? Steve, I want to ask you this. Beyond the law, beyond the Constitution, let's just for a second, as I like to say, let that go. Take it off the table. What is the Democrats' ultimate goal? In other words, if you said, look, the hell with the Constitution, it doesn't exist anymore, what do they want? Do they just want to disarm all of us? Is that what they want? Do they just want us to all not be able to ever protect ourselves? Is that they want the state and the government to have all the guns and all the power?
It's about control. You know that. They're cultural Marxists at heart, and they know that the one thing they can never do is fully violate the Constitution and come for the rights that we hold most dear, because they're afraid that 300 million gun owners, you might get the first, maybe the first 60 million you'll be able to enforce this on. But the other 120, 140, well, they're eventually going to fight back, and they don't want that. So it's about control. The cultural Marxism has replaced the Democratic Party, and they don't see it because they are the useful idiots of the party, because they'll come for them eventually. That's what happened in every cultural revolution. Look at what's going on in China. Do you think the Chinese people who this revolution was supposed to help, you think they're actually living better? No, they're not. The only people who live good in China are the cultural elites and the people in the party, or the people who are in the quasi-capital system, which is still controlled by the state, that are allowed to make money, this alleged middle class. They're the only ones succeeding. Everyone else lives in poverty. Same peasants they were 75 years ago. They want us to be peasants.
Nailed it. Serfs. They're still serfs. Steve, as always, thank you for that call. Really good call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Text line is on fire. You can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, let us not forget ever that the Founding Fathers did not sanctify the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights for deer or rabbit hunting. The founders wanted armed citizens. So if the government became tyrannical, there would be a means to replace it and to defend ourselves against it. Bingo. And then the texter continues to say, and that's, of course, the very reason the progressives want to take our firearms away. And it touches on what Steve was just saying. The libs, the progressives, are Marxists, cultural Marxists. They're Marxists. And so they believe in complete government control and coercion over your life. Well, what stands in their way? An armed citizenry. That's what stands in their way. That's why they have to ban guns and eventually start to disarm the citizens. Because an armed citizenry is a free citizenry. 617-266-6868. The Second Amendment is the ultimate check. The ultimate check on a tyrannical government. Thomas in West Virginia. Thanks for holding, Thomas, and welcome.
Jeff, I own a house in Brockton. I also have a non-resident license to carry in the state of Massachusetts, concealed carry. I also have a concealed carry in the state of West Virginia. I always go back and forth because I'm retired. And here's the point with the gun law that they're proposing. In New York State, if I go through that state with a handgun, it has to be unloaded. The ammunition has to be locked in a separate container, as well as the firearm has to be locked in a separate container in different parts of the vehicle. If I stay more than 24 hours in that state, I have just committed a felony. And here's the problem with law-abiding gun owners. You will have to spend thousands of dollars. In other words, if your vehicle breaks down in New York State and you have that gun and you don't report it to the police or whatever, you're going to spend thousands of dollars defending yourself. And this is what they're trying to do, is to make it more difficult so the average guy throws his hands up in the air and says, oh, the hell with it. And it's been going on for decades in my home state of Massachusetts, where it all began. And what I'm going to do as a gun owner, the people that I used to work with in Local 103, that I know that are gun owners, I'm going to call them up and I'm going to do my homework, find out what town they live in and find out the phone number of their particular state rep. And you're right, this is the only way that we're going to do it. Enough people have to politely call their state reps and state senators and tell them, look, this is just going to make it more difficult. We don't have AR-15 shootings in the state of Massachusetts. The problems where we have gun violence is basically in the inner city. And Boston has the most restrictive handgun laws in the state of Massachusetts. You literally, and I have a friend of mine who owns a business that back in the 80s he got it. He had to take his gun, pass a test, a firing test. Okay, that's another working day out of your way. And when they make these arguments, though it's just a little bit, okay, I always say to these people that want gun-free zones, will you put on your house in Brockton or Foxborough, Massachusetts, where I grew up, will you put a sign on your front lawn that says, this house is a gun-free zone? And what these liberals always tell me on Facebook, F you. So, rules for thee, but not for me. And you are correct that with regards, and I was very active because of my labor affiliation in 103 during the 80s. I was on a first-name basis with State Rep Kevin Fitzgerald, State Senator Royal Bowling Sr., and City Councilor David Scondras. I had dinner with David Scondras in 1989. He didn't know I was into hunting. He didn't know I owned property in West Virginia. Somebody brought up the Second Amendment, and he said, and he was a progressive. This is the first time I ever heard this. He said, if I had my way, he said, nobody would own a gun other than the military and a police officer. He said, people don't need to own semi-automatic rifles for hunting deer. He said, honestly, if I had my way, I would take that Constitution, rip it up, and start all over again. And I was shocked what he said. And I sat at the table and I kept my mouth shut because I was there as a representative of the labor movement, the building trades. I didn't want to piss him off. I didn't want to get into an argument, and I kept my mouth shut. And I regret doing that I should have said, well, wait a minute. The whole reason of the Second Amendment was to allow people to privately own firearms if the government got out of hand. And it was for personal protection. So I don't know, but gun owners out there, you have got to get off your ass, and you've got to talk to your fellow gun owners and possibly family members or friends and just politely call the State House. Don't ream their asses out. I called my state rep, Michelle Dubois, this morning, asked her about the bill. She couldn't talk, but I left a message with her office, and hopefully I want the nuts and bolts of this gun law, and I have a feeling what it is. They're going to make it so difficult for average guys like me that we're just going to say, you know what, is it really worth it?
Exactly.
And to me, yes, it is.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it, Thomas. It's lawfare. It's a form of lawfare. And it's to wear you down, grind you down. It's not worth it, man. Forget it. I'm not going to own a gun, and I'm not going to even apply for a license. Just to hell with it. And you nailed it. Thomas, thank you very, very much for that call. Look, let me throw this log on the fire, and you tell me, am I wrong? We are the cradle of the American Revolution. Virginia would beg to differ, but let's be honest. Massachusetts, Lexington, Concord, John Adams, Samuel Adams, we are the Boston Tea Party. We are the cradle of American liberty and the cradle of the American Revolution. If there weren't guns, how would we ever win our independence? It was armed citizens that won us our freedom, our independence, and our liberty. Okay, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Kelly Financial Services. Do you support California's bill to reduce or give lighter sentences to African Americans as a form of reparations? In other words, do you think it's a good idea? yes or no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUH, N as in Nancy, ER. As always, you can vote via Twitter. Our handle there, at the Kuhner Report. All one word, KUHNER. Okay, many of you are texting, emailing, saying, Kuhnerman, Jeff, please, can you give us the bill number again so we can call our state rep or state senator and specifically point out the bill that we're objecting to? It is HD 4420. HD 4420. Please call your state rep, call your state senator, and tell them, no way. No way. Thomas in West Virginia is right. There's no point yelling or abusing them because that's just counterproductive. Just call up, be firm, but be polite. Say you're completely opposed to this, and if they support it, you will vote against them. Say, I'm sorry, I will have to vote against you in the next election. You are committing political suicide if you support this bill. And let's start pushing back. And hopefully we can stop it before the damage is done. 617-266-6868. Text line, phenomenal texts. 508, Jeff, Maura Healey should send her armed security home. Apparently anyone with a gun is dangerous. See, notice, security for them, but not for us. Have you noticed that? Politicians, they get armed security. No. Damn, they get protected and their families. It's just not you and I that can protect our families. This is from 917. Jeff, you can lead dummies to facts, but you can't make them think. Some of you are pushing back on the idea of a rally at the State House. Some of you don't like it. This is from 617. Jeff, if you have a rally at the State House, the media won't cover it. If they do, they will say that only a few people showed up. That's their modus operandi. That's their MO. We bring out thousands and thousands and thousands, and either the media ignores it or 200 people showed up. And then you start releasing pictures on social media saying, look, it's an ocean of people. How is this 200? It's more like 4,000 or 5,000. Let me read one more, and then I want to go to the phone lines. Jeff, this is from 781. Jeff, so the Democrats who are so against guns have just approved cluster bombs being sent to Ukraine. Yep. Yeah, that's liberalism for you. Holly, you know what? If we all said we were Ukrainians, they'd allow us to have guns. Maybe that should be our tact. No, really, that should be our line of approach. No, hey, we're not Americans. We're Ukrainians. Whoa, in that case, a tank for everybody. Holly on the South Shore. Thanks for holding, Holly, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Holly?
I'm great. Thank you for taking my call. I'm going to say what many other people are saying on your call this morning. Our founding fathers put the Second Amendment in place because they warned us that this could happen. We let our guards down, and, we trusted the government too much, and this is what we're facing today. This is all about power and control. Gun control is not going to fix the crime. It's just going to create more tragedies. The government has put us in a vice. They keep taking some, we keep giving some. It's like you're getting squeezed and squeezed until you're dead. We should not have to compromise our Constitution, and we should not have to compromise us as Americans and who we are.
Well, Holly, you're completely right. And to me, they're playing with our lives now. How do I say this? There are a lot of bills I oppose, a lot of bills I think are bad for our country. But when you start banning guns, When you start making practically impossible for people to carry, when you're effectively now disarming the citizenry, and that's what this bill does, let's not mince words. If I can't protect my wife, my children, my home, yet you're soft on crime. You see, to be honest, Holly, please don't get me wrong. I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. But, if the libs turned around and said, oh, no, we're going to unleash the police. It's going to be law and order. We're going after these criminals. We're going to hammer them. We're going to lock them up. You're going to have such safe streets. Nobody's going to need a gun. I'd say, okay, well, at least there's an argument to be made. I disagree, but at least there's an argument to be made. But they're doing the exact opposite. You've got these soft on crime DAs, these progressive Soros-backed district attorneys who refuse to put violent criminals in jail. Crime is exploding, not just in New York and Chicago. It's exploding in Boston. It's exploding in most cities across the country. And now their answer is, take the guns away from us? Disarm us? So what, we're just sitting ducks? So this is beyond immoral. It is beyond disgusting. It is now dangerous. And so for the good of your family, for the good of your community, for the good of your children, you need to call your state rep and call your state senator and say no to HD 4420. Period. Full stop. We have the right, the God-given right under the Second Amendment to defend ourselves. You can't take it away. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now, this is not just a Massachusetts story. As I talked about earlier regarding California, what the Democrats are doing here in Mass is what they want to do across the entire country. So what we're seeing now to me, Massachusetts it's the California of the East Coast. But by the way, this gun package, Rhode Island is now following. Connecticut is now following. So what you're seeing is what Democrats really want is they want to abolish and destroy the Second Amendment. There's no question. There's no question. And Thomas from West Virginia said, whenever I make this argument with liberals on social media, their response is F you, which is, okay, why don't you just put up a sign in front of your house saying gun-free zone? And that's all, the rebuttal, F you. Yeah, I get that a lot, by the way. Or go back to Canada. Either it's F you or go back to Canada. This is a really, really good text. 508. Jeff, I think I'll put a sign on my house that says, I don't own a gun. It's a gun-free zone. Also, I think the school, this person lives in Sudbury, at Lincoln Sudbury, should do the same thing. Put a sign out that says, quote, we are a soft target, unquote. Quote, we cannot defend ourselves, unquote. Quote, we won't shoot back, unquote. That's what a gun-free zone is telling criminals. So what this bill does, 4420, 4420, is for all intents and purposes, it bans, de facto, it's a ban on firearms carry. In other words, you can't carry it, you can't have any guns at schools, you can't carry it in a school, in a government building, on private property without the consent of the owner. So shopping malls are now gun-free zones. Businesses, any business is a gun-free zone. Literally, every school is a gun-free zone. Well, what do you think is going to happen? If I'm some crazy mass shooter, some psycho, or I'm some gangbanger, I'm like, hey, the sheeple, the lemons, the lemmings, they're just, they're not going to have a gun. The state legislature just passed a bill saying you can't have a gun. We're going to come on in and we'll shoot the place up and we'll have no resistance. It's an open invitation. I've never seen something, frankly, so reckless, irresponsible, or dangerous in my entire life. 617-266-6868. What this bill essentially does is turn the entire state, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, into a quote-unquote gun-free zone. And let's be frank, that's what the Democrats want for the entire country. Scott in Revere. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Jeff, I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend.
Thank you, Scott. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, Jeff, I'm going to be honest with you. You put it perfectly, because California wants to give lighter sentences to criminals of color, and that leads right into the gun control laws, because who are the most likely to have illegal guns? Who's the criminals in the cities? They're the ones who have illegal guns, so they're going to be safe because no one knows they have them. People who are law-abiding citizens are being literally singled out. And how wrong is that? I mean, why don't we all just carry illegal guns? Is that what they're trying to make everyone do? Carry illegal guns?
That's what's going to happen, Scott. No, you absolutely, you hit the nail right on the head. That's eventually what's going to happen. Because when you have soft on crime policies and you're defunding the police and you're not locking up criminals and you have crime after crime after crime, when crime is out of control and these violent thugs have all these illegal guns, and now you're saying I can't even defend myself or my family? Well, what's going to happen, Scott? The next logical step is you're going to buy an illegal gun. You don't want to do it, but you're going to do it. And then we're at their mercy. See, then that's what they really want. Because then they can lock you up, they can lock me up, they can lock all of us up. That's what's so disgusting about all this. They won't go after the criminal, Scott, but they'll go after you and me. And what did we do? Like, really, Scott, what do we do except work hard, pay our taxes, take care of our families, and obey the law? And yet they're targeting us. They're trying to disarm us. Like, what did we do? We've done nothing except pay more Healy's salary and all these hacks up on Beacon Hill. All we do is make them rich, Scott. That's all we do. And at least saying thank you. Look at them. They target, persecute, and harass us.
Turning good people into criminals. That's what they're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a goal. It's just disgraceful. These liberals in this state, it's got to stop. I mean, it started here with the Boston Tea Party, and I think it should end here. So the State House, I believe, is a perfect place to get all the gun owners together. Of course, don't bring your guns because they'll be waiting for that. But to get everybody together, and let's make some noise because it's out of control now.
Scott, thank you very much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. If we could get a little assistance from New Hampshire on this, I'd appreciate it. No, really, New Hampshire, you're going to, we helped you. We need now you to help us. And speaking of New Hampshire, I want to read this email that I got. It's a fascinating point. It's often not mentioned, but tell me it's true. I mean, you tell me if it's not true. Jeff, New Hampshire versus Massachusetts on the Second Amendment. Let me give you a very powerful quote by Robert A. Heinlein. Quote, an armed society is a polite society. Manners are good when one may have to back up his acts with his life, unquote. Here in New Hampshire, we're a constitutional carry state, and a lot of people carry, including myself. Juxtapose that with Massachusetts, which is a highly restrictive state on the Second Amendment. Now, I ask you, how do these two neighboring states compare to each other with regards to societal manners and violent crime. The proof's in the pudding. Bingo! Crime in New Hampshire, much lower than here in Mass. Now, why? Because let's be honest, you think in New Hampshire, you think, oh, every second person's got a gun. Nah, Timmy, let's not break into that house. Why? Because we're going to get shot, Tim. Tim, no, let's not hold up that 7-Eleven. No, not a good idea there, Tim. Why not, Jeff? Because that guy's probably carrying. We're going to get our heads blown off. Even when you're on the road, you're here in Mass, everyone's flipping everybody the bird, honking, flipping the bird, cutting people off. You go to New Hampshire, it's a different world. And one of the reasons why you don't see the quote unquote road rage up there that you see here is, well, if I flip this guy the bird or this woman the bird, if I, honk and, I don't know, whatever, and start, running my mouth, I could get a bullet coming the other way. Nah, I'm just gonna keep my head down and just keep on driving. To me, I think there's no question. New Hampshire is safer. New Hampshire has a hell of a lot less crime, and people are a hell of a lot more polite. Why? Because in New Hampshire, every second person's got a gun, and everybody knows it. Here, no one's got a gun. Except the criminals. So everybody's a tough guy running their mouth. All the time. Middle finger this, old ladies, I'm telling you, old ladies have given me the bird. And by the way, they're the ones illegally crossing the road from a Dunkin' Donuts, going against traffic. Pardon me, Mike? Yeah, what does that say about me? I'll tell you, it was like a 70-year-old, I swear, it was like a 70, 75-year-old elderly lady, complete white hair. She's going against traffic, coming out of the Dunkin' Donuts, cuts me off, I honk her, she gives me the bird. And Ashton's beside me in the front, passenger seat. He's like, Daddy, why did she just give us the middle finger? I go, because this is Massachusetts, son. That's what they do. Even grandma flips you off. Now, in New Hampshire, and I've driven through New Hampshire many, many times, this has never happened to me once. You know why? Because Granny would be saying, that guy may be packing. Let me keep my finger down. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 781. Please, whatever you're doing, I want you to hear this. You need to hear this. Jeff, I haven't told this to many people. But once in Brockton, for those, we have a big audience outside Massachusetts. Brockton is a town outside of Boston. But once in Brockton, my carry permit saved my life, or at least my limbs. One time, a crazed, road-raged driver accosted me one time a few years ago. I truly believed, and I think I was right, he would have attacked me and dragged me out of my car. He was pulling on my locked door and banging on the closed window. Only showing him my firearm made him stop. He retreated back to his car and sped away. 781, I'm telling you, I've heard countless stories like this. An armed society is not just a free society. It is a polite society. And when he knew you were armed, he stopped accosting you. And I think you're right, 781. He would have pulled you out of that car, and he, at a minimum, would have beaten you black and blue, if not killed you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go to Sean in the great state of Iowa. Thanks for holding, Sean, and welcome.
Hey, Jeffrey. How you doing, buddy? Blessings from Iowa.
Thank you so much, Sean. What's on your mind?
Hey, I've been saying this for years. I've been, with our border, especially, with the Democrats and stuff. Look, how do you take down a country that's never been taken before? Japan tried it, and they you know how that turned out. So how do you go about doing that? You do that by getting people in here. Their troops got to be here. So they're bringing them in, and they have been for years. And now that the border is just wide open, I think we're coming to a head right now. This could happen. This could pop off real quick. You know, they're talking about China anyway, and I just think that everybody better gun up right quick. Buy as much as you can, get all the ammo as you can. So those of you out there that are felons that can't buy guns, I happen to be one. I got in an accident. A guy died. I'm a felon. They took my rights. But I have air rifles, and they are legal. You get them right through the mail. I've got a .45 caliber. Reach out and touch someone at about, I bet you I could knock down a deer at 200 yards with it. They make up to a .50 caliber. They do the job. I've got two .30 calibers. I've got one of them full auto, which you don't really need. That's more of a toy, but it will knock down small game, and up to, I could probably kill a deer with it. They kill hogs with these things. Look, I don't care what you get. In fact, one of the reasons why I do have air rifles, and I don't know if I could buy a firearm, I probably wouldn't, because they're going to get rid of your ammunition. They're going to get rid of your talking about with your state. They're doing all that stuff. They can't do that with air rifles. They're not federally. The ATF has nothing to do with them. So I just think it's important that everybody do this, because this is coming to a head, and you've got to be able to defend yourself, and that's why they're doubling down. Everywhere you look, you're always hearing about it. They're trying to take. Remember when you couldn't find a .22 round? Well, I bought a whole bunch of them just as soon as I heard that, started seeing something. And guess what? I got rid of my stuff to my son, but he now has thousands of rounds that I paid $12.50 for a 550 box, and now you pay for that box. It's probably 3 times as much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, there's no question. No, they're squeezing the ammunition as well. You're dead on. No, Sean, you're absolutely dead on. No, and Sean, as you were just talking, I was just thinking, in, say, 1958 or 1962, I'm just going to arbitrarily pick some years. In this country, you can look it up. Please don't take my word for it. Forget buying an air gun. You could have bought a gun. Any gun. A handgun, a long gun, a shotgun. You could have bought it by catalog, by mail, literally by mail. No background checks, no nothing. And people did all the time. And you didn't have the mass shootings that you have today. You didn't have the crime that we have today. You don't have the mass violence, gun violence that we have today. So it's not the guns. We've always had a lot of guns in our country. What's changed is the culture. That's what's changed. And so the liberals can try to blame the guns till the cows come home. Until we fix our culture. Look at Great Britain. They have some of the most severe, strictest gun control laws in the world. Their homicide rate is higher than that of New York. London's homicide rate dwarfs that of New York. They're slaughtering each other with knives. Knives. So you can't walk down the streets of London. Ask anybody who lives in London. They will chop you up. You've got young people out of control, gangs out of control. And they use knives, they use pipes, they use illegal guns, whatever it is. And it's law-abiding citizens who are living in absolute terror. So, Sean, you hit the nail right on the head. You better learn to defend yourself, because it's going to get worse. Sean, thank you so much for that call. Kim in Newton, thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, for taking my call. I'm glad that I was able to get on the air. I'm at work and I'm listening to the program, getting frustrated and aggravated as the show goes on. I live in Newton.
Kim, sorry, I don't mean to rush you, but we've got a minute, so please go.
Okay. So 2-3 weeks ago, there was a murder in Newton. 3 seniors got stabbed to death, one of them 30 times in the face. I just feel that if those seniors had an opportunity to carry,
they'd be alive today. I'm sorry, Kim. I wish we had more time. Oh, Kim, you're right. Had they had the ability to carry and defend themselves, they would be alive today. Instead, they were slaughtered. Second Amendment forever, baby.